Hello, hello to everyone watching on YouTube and Periscope. I am Nicolas Raimo. I make videos on electric vehicles every single week, normally on a Saturday morning. Today, this is a live video coming to you completely live on YouTube and Periscope. Being live, I'm looking for you, the audience, to interact with me in the chat. So if you're on Periscope or YouTube, type a comment. I'll come to your comment. If you don't want your comment to appear on the screen, just don't put me on the screen and I won't put you on the screen. But if you want to be on the screen, your name will come on the screen. For example, we've got Heather here from the Scottish Drivers Club saying hello. So hello, Heather, welcome here. Hello to Senna, who has just joined me before on a panel where I was talking to Robert Llewellyn all about the EV industry, all about himself and what he's got up to. Hello to Oliver, who's one of the moderators over on the Renault Zoe Owners Club. As many of you know, I am a keen Renault Zoe owner and interact quite a lot with the club. And Oliver is one of the moderators there. Just seeing who else we've got. We've got Steve. We've got Dave. Dave's here. Dave I've talked to quite a lot, and we've also got Steve Ashford. So hello to all of you who are joining me, and Darren Sant, who's one of my patrons, and also Victor, who's one of my patrons. He's also here. So hello to all of you. Today we're going to be talking about the £2 billion fund that the government are investing into the Transport Secretary, and in particular, the £10 million they've dedicated towards electric vehicle charging to stop, as Boris calls it, range anxiety. And that's mainly what we're going to talk about. I'm going to mainly talk about if I think that £10 million should have been spent differently rather than for charging infrastructure. And I want to know your thoughts, your comments in the comment section on YouTube and Periscope. Give me your comments. But first of all, let's give you a little bit of background on what we're talking about. So here is the question that went into members of Parliament to Boris Johnson.
Green investments generated the highest returns in the recovery from the 2008 financial crisis. As we restart our economy, will my right honourable friend commit to prioritising?
So that was what an MP asked Boris, and this was his reply.
To encourage the take-up of electric vehicles, we are putting a further £1 billion into EV infrastructure across the country to prevent range anxiety for those who use EV.
So what they're doing is setting some money across to charging infrastructure, and what I think it was, I just don't think it's needed. And one of the reasons I don't feel that this money is invested correctly into the charging infrastructure is I think private companies alone would have took that slack up, and I think the money would have been better invested, maybe boosting the grant towards electric vehicles, which recently dropped down from its higher number to its lower £3,500 figure. And I want to know what you guys think in the chat. Do you think that this £10 million would have been better spent increasing the grant money for electric cars, meaning there's more electric cars on the road, meaning more private companies have to fit those chargers to meet the demand, to meet the supply of people wanting those chargers? I mean, I don't know about you, but I've never really suffered with range anxiety, and even in a smaller 22 kilowatt, because I planned the charges corresponding to the car. Now with a 40 kilowatt hour battery in the i3, I never worry about range anxiety because I very rarely travel out of its 200-mile range. And with the new 50 kilowatt hour batteries coming from the Renault Zoe, for example, and bigger batteries from other manufacturers, we're getting towards the way 250, 300-mile range, which is mainly most people's longest journey that they'll do without any stops. And that's the important part, is without any stops. I'm just going to look in the comments. So, Doug, thank you very much. You agree with me. I'd prefer it if you all disagreed with me. It means I've got more conversation to fire off rather than a quick 7-minute conversation with you all. Steve's put here, range anxiety is cobblers anyway. Charge anxiety is a thing though, as this is a charger's bust. That's a very good point. So, yeah, maybe more doubled up chargers on each site, so rather than just one individual electric vehicle charger on that point, maybe we should have 2 electric vehicles on the site. We've got Senna here. He's put, I think range anxiety is for those who don't own an EV. than those who do. Yeah. So, like I just said, I don't have that issue now with an EV. I don't suffer with range anxiety because I drive an EV. I know how far it goes, and I don't worry about that range anxiety. I'd probably be treating it a bit differently if, as Steve just said, I turned up at a charger and it was broke, and I only got there with a limited amount of range. So maybe we do need more redundancy chargers. I mean, that's the thing with the Tesla supercharge network is you've got a bank of 20 chargers, 6 chargers. If one of them's broke, it's not really that much of an issue going forward. It does just make things a little bit better. We just spoken to Robert just a couple of minutes ago, and Robert was saying that he actually stopped at a Tesla charger with a broken charger. There was actually a broken Tesla charger, and he said it's that rare, very rarely happens. He actually tweeted about it. Just got some more things that were said by the Chancellor. Let me just find out what the Chancellor said. Let me just get his interview. So I'll play this for you now.
Now, we know that the car industry has, of course, been very badly hit during this crisis. But April's new sales figures showed us that for the first time ever, that the two biggest selling models were both electric vehicles. So to keep this quiet, clean car revolution going, I can also announce today £10 million of additional support for car charging points on our streets. The car will remain the mainstay for many families, as well as backing electric infrastructure. Therefore, we're also going to accelerate the filling of potholes that plague so many road users in all the forms.
Yeah, so just going on about all this extra investment that's going on. I mean, the other thing that's happening, which I don't know if many of you know, but they're going to make EV bikes, EV scooters, EV one wheel, stuff like that, extra EV mobility legalised. So currently, those forms of transport are currently illegal in the UK to use. So my electric scooter that I've reviewed on the channel before is not legal to use on UK roads at all. It's completely illegal to use. But the government are going to start looking into that and how they can change that and things they can do differently with that. I'm now joined by a guest called Neil Roberts, who runs Sussex EVs. So welcome, Neil. How are you doing?
Hi, Nick. Yeah, I'm doing very well. I'm not muted, am I?
No, you're not muted. So, Neil, if you don't know who he is, he runs EV Nexus, which is a conglomerate, a group of groups within it, all local groups. So Neil runs himself Sussex EVs, and also the whole group as its own. Neil, we're talking obviously today about the new government funding towards chargers. I think that the government money would have been better spent elsewhere, that 10 million, rather than going on public infrastructure. What's your opinion on it?
Well, we're clearly in a situation where there is a monopoly at motorway services, and if you are not experienced in driving an EV, you might struggle to. Actually, let me start again. If you are not familiar with an app like ZapMap or PlugShare or something like that, the first place you're going to immediately think of for stopping on a motorway journey in an EV is the motorway services. And
just move your mic up a bit. It's rubbing on your beard.
Yeah, the first place you're going to think about stopping is going to be a motorway service. Unfortunately, the motorway services are not massively well catered at the moment, and that is improving in certain places. BP Chargemaster are rolling out chargers in numerous MSAs, so that is changing. I think that is a nut that needs to be cracked. We need to have a reliable motorway network. More so, I would say, than having rapid chargers in towns. Rapid chargers in towns, very, very important. Much more important to have them on major trunk roads.
Yeah, I mean, Sean's just put in the comments here, which is, hey, Nick, need more destination chargers for those who can't charge at home, which is funny. We've just been talking to Robert over on Neil's channel, Sussex EV channel, part of the Nexus group, which was there's not enough. There's some employees that are resistant about fitting chargers, and that would solve a lot of destination issues. But I mean, I don't know about you, but if I was a business, a pub, a restaurant, a hotel, it would make complete business sense to fit a charger, but make a condition of using that charger that you have to be one of the customers.
Yeah, for use for patrons only. Even if it was only a 3-pin socket, even if it was only a 3-pin socket, if you could just plug in when you went for a meal and you were there an hour and a half, what would you put in? You 12 miles, 13 miles, something like that in that time. That's probably enough to get you home. So it makes a massive difference. But yeah, council run car parks, obviously sometimes, particularly around in the south, you quite often see CYC chargers in council run car parks, and they seldom ever work. For the cost of one of those CYC chargers, you could have a dozen, 2 dozen maybe 7 kilowatt posts. That would make a really big difference.
So you think the government money is going to be spent by councils putting in chargers to their own car parks to be fitted? Is that what you think the £10 million the government had given? That do you think councils will use that to fit chargers?
You're asking a question I can't answer.
Would you think we'd be better legislating saying, right, if councils have to fit a minimum of 3 chargers per 10 spaces, and instead of giving them grant money, you can say, right, you can fit that however you want, using private investment and charging for the charges, fitting them yourself and charging and making a revenue out of it like they do for car parks. I think that would be better rather than give, here's £10 million of cash. You have to apply for the grant. You have to do it all your own way, because councils are predominantly quite lazy, in my opinion, on applying for grants.
Also, they don't really have the internal experience to know what it is they're talking about, what it is. That's unfair, but what it is they're trying to do. Private companies, such as the usual ones, Podpoint, BP Chargemaster, they know what they're doing when it comes to 7 kilowatt posts in car parks. They know all the ins and outs. They know how to do charging. They know how to do billing. Sorry. That is a much better way of doing it, and then have a profit split between the company that's installed it and the vendor who supplied the ground.
Yeah. You see, like I said before, for me, this money should go on boosting that grant from £3,500 back to the original £5,000 it used to be on EVs, keeping the cap at 50k. Because if you can afford over a 50k car, you don't really need to. You can buy plenty of EVs for under 50. Keeping the grant there, making the grant £5,000, because if more people bought EVs, then the private companies need to fit more chargers to make more money, because those chargers are going to be used more, filled more. So it makes more sense for them to invest more. I mean, I'm just having a look at the comments. Someone's just mentioned connected curbs. So here we go. So Doug Palmer's just put, we need more street charging, i.e. connected curbs. So the problem with this is most councils are restricted on planning permissions and where they're going to put them in space. And you can have stuff like on-street lamppost chargers, but usually lamppost chargers are based closer towards, further away from the road rather than on the road. And then you've got trailing issues of cables.
Yeah, there is definitely an issue with safety when it comes to pedestal type chargers. I love the idea. I love the ones which come out of the ground. I love the lamppost ones. I think they're all brilliant ways of resolving the same problem. But you are always going to have that small child, that elderly person who's hard of seeing, who's going to trip on a cable, and that's going to cause an issue. It's going to cause a headache for whoever runs that service, be it the council, be it the private company. That is something that needs to be resolved. That is something that needs to be worked out. One of the things which came up in the conversation with Robert earlier was about capacitive charging pads. And that is a possible solution, although an expensive one, for like streets of terraced houses. Sussex EVs were down at an event in Eastbourne in January this year, and almost everybody, seaside town, almost everybody we spoke to said, I don't have off-street parking, I live in a terrace house. How do I charge? There's a few rapid chargers around Eastbourne, but not that many.
Yeah. What about the other sort of thing? So I'm just looking here. So the government now, because of COVID-19, less people are going to want to take public transport because of social distancing rules. You don't want to get the train, the bus, and stuff like that because everyone's going to be so cramped in together on all these public transports. The problem is we do have solutions for these, like bicycles, which a lot of people do have, but we also have electric scooters, electric one wheels, and other forms of electric transport that are currently on, under UK law, illegal. And in London, they ran a massive ticketing service on ticketing people on these electric scooters and one wheels and fining them because they are essentially classed as a motor vehicle with no insurance, so you can be fined. Now they've promised to bring forward legislation on this and start to legislate on it sooner. Have you got one of these sort of electric skateboards, electric scooters, Neil? Have you...
I haven't. I would love one, but I can't justify it with where I live and the places I need to go to. My office is 15 miles away down a dual carriageway, so I wouldn't be able to use it for that. Sainsbury's is 2 minutes walk down the road, so I can't make that work. However, people will always want personal transport, a personal transport device of some description, be it a bicycle, car, scooter, or whatever. If we can make those personal transport devices as small as possible and as efficient as possible and as least polluting as possible, then we have gone a massive way in reducing the emissions problems in our major built-up cities.
Yeah, no, I agree. Which out of all the chargers, and from the pop-up chargers you get in the ground to the lamppost chargers, what is your favourite one? Which one do you go, oh, that's the one I want? If you were a council, which one would you pick?
Oh, blimey. I like the pop-up ones from the ground just because they look cool.
Just because they look cool, no other reason. Just because they look cool.
No, I don't have an honest answer for that. I think they all have.
Have you ever used any of them? Have you ever used any of the electricity? Any of the Ubitricity chargers? Any of the pop-up chargers?
I've not used any other than East Grinstead near where I live has one or two BP Chargemaster posts. There's a couple of BP Chargemaster or Pod Point posts at various other places. I have not had any real need to use roadside chargers very much. If we're doing a long road trip, we're using rapid chargers. If we're within 150 miles of home, we charge at home. And that tends to be how it works.
Yeah. I've just brought up one of the Ubitricity chargers here. So I think this is an Oxford, London sort of area. So these lampposts are perfect for Ubitricity because the lampposts are on the side of the road. But where I live, all the lampposts are more the house side of the road. So that cable would have to trail all over. Where is it in Sussex? Is it like this, like the picture I'm showing on the screen, or is it more like where I live?
Well, my sister-in-law lives in Brighton, and she would really like to have an electric car. She lives on a street with just terraced houses. She lives in a basement flat, and they have lampposts like that on the road side of the pavement. Perfect, except you've got one lamppost for every 12 cars. So, yes, her street has. It's not actually Ubitricity. It's one of the other companies. I can't remember which one it is. And they're being installed all over Brighton. So
is it a Rolex one? Is it a Rolex Run one? No, not sure.
No.
Len Smith just put pop-up chargers will always have someone parking in front. Yes and no, because the thing when they put these lamppost chargers in is they don't just convert one lamppost charger; they convert the whole row of the road. So even if one's blocked, or because they never mark them as lamppost chargers. They never sign them for EVs only. The idea is you convert enough lampposts that it doesn't matter if someone's parked in front of it. And not only that, if these lampposts are outside your house, most people's street etiquette on-street parking is you don't park outside your neighbour's front house. I used to live in a terraced house with no parking, and it's an unwritten street etiquette rule that you don't park in front of your neighbour's house.
Actually, there's an interesting point which Ewan McTurk brought up 2 weeks ago in the Nexus chat. In Norway, where there is obviously much higher usage of electric cars, they don't really have much of an issue with.
No.
You walk down the streets, you don't see lots of cars plugged in all over the place because they make it work. There are lots of rapid chargers around. People make use of those when it's convenient for them. These are, I think, a lot of the time we see problems which don't really exist when you actually get down to it. Yes, they do exist, but only in a certain use case. If you change your use case ever so slightly, you can make it work.
Yes.
I think an example of the EV side, he lives in a flat in Hitchin. He doesn't have off-street parking. He charges at Waitrose, which is just across the road from him. He has made that work. No one would look at that and think that's a perfect use case for me getting an electric car, but he has made it work, and he's made it work very, very well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just to let people know, by the way, I'm trying new stuff on my channel and the EV Lounge live stuff. So at the moment, I've got these smart LED bulbs behind me, and you can see the walls are lit up. And they're going to be doing more with them. But there is a thing, I don't expect anyone to do it today, but there is a thing called Super Chats on YouTube. So if you do a Super Chat for any amount, it will hopefully change the colour of these bulbs. And I'm currently playing with the settings in the background to make sure they all work. But the future plan of making these bulbs change colour is more interaction with you, the audience, when I do lives, that we can even make them change colour, or I can connect them to smart sockets, make lights in the background turn off. We could do all sorts of wacky things with them. And I've been playing. If you saw one of my bulbs start flashing red before, pulsing, it's because Octopus Energy has just gone low prices for tomorrow. It's below 2p per kilowatt hour. So if you saw my lights suddenly start flicking, that was why. Yeah, I've been testing as many of these external sort of gadgets out at the moment. Just looking down at the comments. So we should be looking more at vehicle to grid on the streets too. Doug Palmer's put. That's an interesting thing actually. I've never actually thought of a vehicle to grid on street parking. I probably thought more vehicle to grid for places like workplaces where your car is plugged in all day, not doing anything.
Yeah, it's important to have a look at the power usage graph for the whole country, and obviously you can see that during the work day, in winter it's hitting 42, 43 gigawatts, and then in the evening after 8 o'clock it starts tailing off and it drops down to low 30s or high 20s. So having cars being able to back up the grid during those peak hours between 9 and 7 o'clock, be they plugged in a workplace or home, would make a massive difference to balancing the grid. You could do it at work and at home, and then you have the advantage that you can be using the cheap electricity that you got from your workplace.
Yeah, well, not only that, you could, depending on what the prices were when you're at your workplace, you might be charging at work, say, during negative pricing, and then going home and filling your house and the grid and being paid for electricity you didn't essentially pay for, which is basically the way it's meant to work. By the way, Senna, I saw that comment. He says, "Does super chat now mean we can make Nick look like he's sat in the red light district?" Essentially, yes, but certain super chats will make the lights all go red in my room. So yeah, will look like I'm on the front of a window of a red light district.
I think we should all find out how to do that and make sure we do it at random times.
Well, eventually, what we were thinking of doing is having smart switches. So to make, because my whole YouTube career on my own channel here on EV Nick and EV Lounge is all about trying to make people get more into EVs and be more interested and make it a bit more entertaining. And what we're thinking of doing is maybe having maybe have the light change a different colour if we're bullying Craig, or maybe a little hand that comes in and sort of pie to the face, maybe a pie to the face for a little bit of a comical gag. Although if we set that up on Craig's webcam, everyone will be doing it every 5 minutes. Yes, I mean, what do we think about what's happened to the grant system here in the UK? What effect do you think COVID-19 is going to have on the car industry? I mean, I have got a video specifically about that next week, but do you think it's going to have any impact on the way people are going to think?
Anecdotally, what I've been hearing is a lot of people are quite enjoying the clean air, which is in all of our towns and cities at the moment. People are going out and realizing actually what clean air is like. When we go for our walks, it's wonderful. And as soon as a diesel van drives past, you can immediately smell it. And this is just anecdotally, but what I've been reading is that there are a lot of people who want to retain that after lockdown is finished. And so the number of people looking at electric vehicles as a solution to that does seem to be increasing. I would like to see real numbers in the next 24 months to see what effect it actually has. But I think there's positive direction of movement.
Yeah, I think what I noticed, the first thing you get when you're an EV driver, the first thing you get when you get an EV is you suddenly become a particular filter taster. You can suddenly taste diesel fumes more than you ever could before. I mean, I live in the countryside, so my air's pretty much naturally clean all the time. But my house is still on a building site; they're still building the site, and there's a road sweeper that normally comes and cleans all the builders' roads rubbish that they've left as they've gone out after every day, and it's not been operating because obviously the building site's been shut. And then on Wednesday they reopened the building site and the diesel road sweeper come back, and it was bellowing the worst tasting diesel soot out the back of it. And I thought, why can't we just, why that is a perfect kind of machine that should be electrified, that just does a very minimal task, goes around a very, very small area, and then parks up again for the rest of the day. It literally doesn't do anything apart from drive around the building estate and sweep it.
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. If you speak to probably a large proportion of people in that industry, they will say, "Oh, an electric truck won't work. It won't have the power to be able to get up the steep hills or whatever. It won't have a big enough battery to be able to do the whole round." Yeah, I would say that 99% of the time these arguments are false, but they don't realise that.
Yeah. Oliver here, being devil's advocate, he's put, most people cannot afford the cost of an EV at the moment, which brings us back onto the subject, which is this £10 million being spent in the right areas to support EVs? Would it have been better spent, instead of £10 million towards putting EV chargers in, would it have been better spent saying £10 million worth of free interest loans for buying an electric car? So instead of grant money off the car, you can, a bit like they do in Scotland, go and buy an electric car. There is no interest. It's a government secured loan against that car, 5 years, completely free, zero interest. Would that have been better?
That could definitely have been better. Another option is a lot of companies are opting for the leasing through the company to get the benefits of benefit in kind, going down to 0%. So you pay for your vehicle pre-tax, and you're saving yourself anywhere between 25 and 50%, depending on what your earnings are. If that could be done without the companies, the employer, having to get involved, if it could be done directly through the government, that would be a massive incentive.
Oh yeah,
that would make such a massive difference. Leasing isn't for everybody. I understand that. I looked at leasing. I decided to get a personal loan in the end because it negligibly it was a bit cheaper, and it means I don't have restrictions on how many miles I can do a year. Not that that's made much difference this year, but still. I think that incentives like that can make a massive difference.
yes.
So yes, it probably should have been put into those places. But we do need to sort out our major trunk road infrastructure.
We do, but I mean, like Oliver said, how many charges would £10 million actually pay for?
Not that many.
Yeah, it depends what charges you fit. If you were fitting destination charges, you'd get quite a few. You get a lot. Let's say an average cost of £2,000 per socket, divided by 10 million. Someone's going to do the maths in the chat there. Or rapid charges, average cost per site is probably about £15,000, £20,000 by the time you put the services in. So, £10 million on that is not a great amount of money, really, in the grand scheme of things. But 10 million towards offsetting the interest on loans, they would have got a lot more value for their kick because they're getting the money back. They're just subsidising the interest on those loans. And they're also encouraging adoption into the car industry, creating more people buying more cars. Means that there's more investment privately to put those charges in. This is my problem with it, is you can't, the government trying to fund something that would have quite happily moved on privately without any investment.
Yeah, this is probably true.
So someone's done the maths for us. 500 destination charges at 2k each. So it doesn't really go very far in the grand scheme of things. No. And if you think let's say you wanted an average of say 10 charges per site, you've only gone down to, is that 50 sites? My math served me right there. Yeah, it is. Yeah. So it's only 50 sites, which is nothing. Really.
No, you're absolutely right. That isn't great.
No.
It needs to be a lot more, but we are stuck in the situation that we're in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just having a look now. I think the actual... Let me just bring up my shared screen. So let's have a quick look through this thing. So if I remember rightly... Oh, I've not pulled the wrong screen up. There we go. So I've got Neil on as well. The total package is £2 billion, but £10 million of it's going towards EV chargers. The rest is going to be helping latest ever boost for cyclists and pedestrians. Emergency bike lanes and streets will help support transport networks. Trials of rental e-scooters to be brought forward to increase green transport options. Government working with leading tech developers to reduce crowding at public transport. So, I mean, the money's being spent wholeheartedly across sort of like the transport industry. So it's all about... The problem is they've invested so much money in public transports over the years, and we were talking privately with Robert just after the EV Nexus chat, which is the last thing people want to do now is get on public transport because it's crowded and you can't social distance on it. So they need to start investing in other transports. And the last thing we want, they're encouraging people to drive to work if they can, which is literally the most anti-green message on the planet after years and years of telling people to get public transport. So what we're going to do to stop people? I mean, the problem is now is how do we get people back to using lower transport, lower green transport like public transport or bikes? Because most people will use a bike for a bit, but as soon as it chucks it down with rain, the majority of people are not that invested in riding to work. Yeah.
This is very true. As I said in the last chat, my my office is 15 miles away on dual carriageways. I wouldn't be able to cycle it. I would love to. I'd love to get a Twizy and use that to get to work. That'd be an option. But yeah, actual cycling, would love to. I've got 4 bikes in the garage that I don't use. I need to do something with them.
By the way, Senna's just corrected. It's 5,000 destination charges. He did 1 million, not 10 million in his calculations.
Well, 5,000's a bit better.
Yeah, 5,000's a bit, but that's only destination charges. That's not that's not rapid charges. And the point here is, Boris went, well, we're going to invest 10 million to stop range anxiety. 5,000 destination charges doesn't stop range anxiety. Range anxiety is stopped by multiple rapid sites on multiple motorway networks.
Do we know offhand exactly how many MSAs there are in the United Kingdom?
No, but I'm sure Zapmat does.
I'm sure it does. Okay, let's pick a number out of the air which is bound to be wrong. So let's say 250. So if you wanted to install a bank of 5 rapid chargers at each motorway service around the whole country, 250 locations, 5 chargers each. So that's 1,500 rapid chargers.
So there's currently on Zapmat, there's 18,000 public charge points across the UK. So that'll be sites, not individual banks of chargers. And I'm sure there's a fact on their website with exactly... there we go. Zapmat statistics. So there's 31,610 connections, 11,339 locations, and 18,184 devices.
So I've just done the maths as well. If we are talking about 250 MSAs at 25 grand per pop, 5 rapid charges per motorway service, that's 37 million.
That you need.
Mm-hmm.
So £10 million is a drop in the ocean, really.
It will go a long way to help. But
it will go along. It'll go a long way to help. But if you look there, so we got 185 new connections were added on ZapMap in the last 30 days. That's without any government funding. So it's not. You don't really need government funding on the. I really need to admit that the government aren't suddenly going to change policy because they saw Nick Raimo's EV channel and they realised how wrong they were and they should have put it into free government loans. But I mean, maybe I'm wrong. If you think I'm wrong in the comments and you think this £10 million is well spent and they're going to do amazing things with it, maybe they're going to spend £10 million on buying out Ecotricity and changing all their charges on motorway service stations. In which case, that's a brilliant spent of £10 million.
How much did BP sell, or how much did BP buy Chargemaster for? Was it 250 million? I know that the actual figure wasn't officially announced, but there was a lot of rumours about it.
I don't think it was that much. I thought it was a very sort of tiny amount. So how much did BP buy Chargemaster? Let's have a look, Neil. That's the amazing part about being live is we can actually Google it and put it live on the screen as we're doing it. And I can't find it, but I wonder if you can find it. I just realised I've still got screen share on, so I've got to be careful just in case Google randomly pulls up the wrong search result somehow. There's 111 motorway service areas.
Okay, so I was more than double.
Yeah.
In my prediction.
So, yeah.
So half that cost then, so 35 million down to 18 million or thereabouts. My maths is as bad as yours, Nick.
It's almost as bad as mine. Mine's definitely worse. It's one thing I'm happy to admit is my maths is terrible. Yeah. Well, I mean, do we need chargers on every single motorway service station? Because the majority of trips I don't need to stop. The only trip I would have had to stop for this year would be a fully charged show down at Farnborough because I live north, You probably wouldn't have had to have stopped for going there, would you, Neil?
No. Well, as long as I drove carefully, I could easily have done that.
Could you?
Sorry, in Farnborough. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking of Silverstone. Yeah, Farnborough. That's only an hour's drive away.
So yeah, you'd be able to do that one simply. I'd have to do it very complicated. I wouldn't have done it in one stop. No way I would have done it in one stop. I'd have to have probably done at least two, way I drive, probably 3 stops to get to Farnborough, because it is a very, 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 very long way.
Right, Green Tech Media said that BP bought ChargeMaster for $170 million.
Wow. Okay, so
what's that? 135 million pounds.
Well, judging by the current exchange rate, it's probably about £175,000.
Now that'd be a very favourable exchange rate. At the current exchange rate, it's probably 7 billion.
Wow. Okay.
No, I'm joking. But no, it's probably going to be closer to 150 to 160 million pounds in today's money.
So Senna's just put an interesting point. He put, they don't need to change the electricity charges, just add more to where they already and keep the old ones for people who drive lease, Renault Zoe ACs and stuff like that. That's a very good, interesting point. Yeah, because at the moment they're pulling the old ones out and replacing them with these new chargers. In theory, they just need to spend that money to putting another connection in, maybe, and another charger. What's annoyed me is a lot of the new chargers, they're removing the fast rapid AC charger, which Renault Zoe drivers rely on, and there is a lot of Renault Zoes that can charge at 43 kilowatts that are still on the road, are still serviceable, and still will be on the road for another 8-9 years, plus. They're not going to suddenly stop working, but by taking those chargers out, those rapid chargers for the Renault Zoes, you're almost making the cars redundant when they don't have to be.
Now, I'm sure that PR for Ecotricity said that they were only doing that where there wasn't previously an AC option.
So
is that true?
They were very clever on this. So what they've done is they've removed the 43 kilowatt socket and replaced it with a 22 kilowatt socket. So they've kept AC rapid, so to speak, on the socket, but it's not rapid. It's slow. It's half the speed it was. So on one of the sites, they took off the 43 kilowatt and they've replaced it with a 22. But I think they said they were going to keep it rapid, but I mean, they are a company that don't keep many promises to anyone. They told everyone at year 1 fully charged live that they were working on fixing the chargers and they were going to have new ones in. And by year 2 fully charged, a whole 12 months later, they still hadn't started fixing the problem. So they are, but it's not just their problem. It is because they've got old chargers. It's not their fault, and it's very hard to update. I mean, how many petrol stations did we say? 112 or something like that.
111.
Yeah. So you got 111 chargers. You've got to change 111 units that cost an average. I think the chargers themselves cost an average of about $6,000 each. That's a lot of money that you've got to.
And Ecotricity have never made a profit from the electric highway.
No, they've only ever made a loss. And a big loss at that, because they used to give the electricity away for free. When I first started driving an EV, Ecotricities were completely free. You just tapped an Ecotricity card on the box and it just started your charge instantly. They were never charged, ever. And even now, majority of the time, they are free. But
yeah, it's not really an enviable position which Ecotricity find themselves in at the moment. They have a monopoly on a network which they can't really afford to maintain. But equally, when people are attempting to make offers to buy out their stake, they're not coming back with sensible prices. So, what is the answer here? I don't know what the answer is.
No. I don't think anyone really does. I almost feel a bit sorry for them in some respects, because they invested all this money in the early days when there wasn't any EVs to encourage adoption to EVs. We've all bought EVs. They started the ball rolling, and now everyone's jabbing the daggers in. And and no one they've not really been thanked for what they started. Everyone was just very keen to get the daggers out, which some cases rightly so. But you've got to give them a little bit of time to sort of, because they've not made any money out of it. I think really what they need is someone to buy them out, and I think that I think that's what they're probably trying to do. But I reckon there'll be vultures out there hoping to pick off the bones when they go bust, rather than buy them out for a fair price. But it'd be interesting to see if they do get bought out by one of the other networks, which has got the money to invest. I mean, BP. I think someone's just said in the comments before that there we go, found it. Alex has put a bit of a bargain for BP, because if you look at what BP make in profit a year, what they paid for BP Chargemaster is nothing. They
pocket change.
It's pocket change. They could buy up Ecotricity tomorrow and change all the charges within 4 weeks, and it wouldn't. In the grand scheme of things, it's cost them nothing. They're one of the largest oil companies, conglomerates going. And which oil companies have not bought a charger yet? So Shell own New Motion, BP own Chargemaster. Who have we got left? A petrol company, big fuel company that have not bought up yet.
Total. Okay, so Total could buy Ecotricity. They can't buy Pod Point because that's been bought out by EDF, who are also looking at capitalising on being the new energy supplier. Shell also now own an electricity company. So Shell are being really proactive, and so's BP. I think BP will probably enter the energy supply network soon. My bet would be with OVO, because I think they get supplied off OVO at the moment for their Chargemaster units on green electricity. There's also an interesting dynamic with the Ecotricity motorway situation, because BP Chargemaster own the leasehold on all of their petrol station forecourts. They are not obliged to follow the MSA contract with Ecotricity, and that's why they're able to put their chargers into their petrol stations. I dare say that Shell have the same leasehold agreement with the MSA, so that they control what goes on their petrol station forecourt. That, to a large extent, removes any value of a monopoly in the MSA. The only real advantage then that Ecotricity have is its easy walking distance to Starbucks, whereas the BP Chargemaster charges might be a little bit of a long way to walk before you can get into the services. I think that's going to change the dynamic a bit.
Yeah, but I don't think BP care about putting chargers on motorway service stations at the moment, because they've got chargers situated at Holiday Inns that they've got contracts with, conveniently located near the exit point on the motorway service station.
But they are actively doing it.
Supposedly Total bought ChargePoint. So the only one left is who Jason said, which is Esso. So yeah, Esso haven't got one. Right, Neil, I think we'll wrap this up. I've been going for almost an hour now, so thank you very much for joining us. If you are in the UK or anywhere in the world, check out EV Nexus's website, which is what, Neil?
It is www.evgroups.co.uk. So if I can just say a little thing here. So the EV Groups Nexus is an initiative to promote cooperation between electric car clubs around the United Kingdom and Ireland, and Europe in future. We do plan to cover clubs from all over Europe. It is a place that you can go. You go to evgroups.co.uk. You will find a club which shares a common ethos, is friendly, is welcoming, and where no question is out of bounds. And this is what we wanted to do. We wanted to help people to start clubs, and then we wanted to help people find clubs. So that's what the Nexus is.
Okay,
so,
and what you on Twitter on Nexus?
The Nexus is at EV Groups Nexus. My personal Twitter is Neil E. Roberts, as it is with everything.
Yeah, so thank you, Neil E. Roberts of Sussex TV. Neil is actually one of my patrons. If you are considering, if you're financially completely safe during the lockdown at the moment, then please check out my Patreon page. Patreon's an area you can support me on YouTube. You can super chat me on here if you don't want to sign up in dollars on Patreon. But Patreon is a way of supporting creators like me to make videos. When basically all the other income like AdSense revenue on YouTube is drying up, my Patreon helps me pay for the software I use for creating videos, paying for microphones, cameras and stuff like that. So Neil and Victor and some of the other people who are in the chat are patrons of mine, and they are the reason my videos will never stop, because I feel contractually obliged to carry on making content to make them happy.
As you should.
Yes, as I should. Thank you to Neil. If you want to... Victor, in fact, Victor's there. Victor's one of my other patrons over in Ireland. So if you are interested in joining an EV group, then check out EV Nexus. I'm on there as Derbyshire EVs because I run the local Derbyshire EV group. Neil runs the local Sussex EV group, which is why he's got that big banner behind him. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel down below. Don't forget to... Oh, what was that? A little award you got for it?
Winner of Best Electric Vehicle Club 2019.
Well, I'm coming for that next year. Don't you worry. So, yeah, thank you very much, Neil. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out the EV Nexus page. And I would like to thank you all very, very much.
Thank you.